Thank you, Madam Chairwoman. And I want to start by saying thank you to all of our tribal leaders and welcoming you to our committee and to Washington, D.C. It's great to see so many old friends and wonderful to have you here. And thank you to Chairwoman Ledger Fernandez and our ranking member for this important hearing. I want to start with my position on this issue, which is that I believe that this decision by the majority of our Supreme Court is a direct affront to tribal sovereignty and to tribal nationhood, and upends, of course, generations of settled law in the U.S. tribal relationship, hundreds of treaties, and is an affront to our Constitution, in which we recognize tribal sovereignty as inherent to our tribal nations. And so I strongly believe that we need to support the tribal nations who would like to see a legislative fix to this decision. But my concern and the question I want to direct to our tribal leaders who are here today and to those who are listening across our tribal nations in the US is, how do we build a process at the congressional level to get to some form of consensus about the legislative path? I know some of the previous questions have touched on this. I served on a panel just last week with a couple of dozen tribal leaders asking the question, what should the legislative fix look like? And received at least 6 different answers based on 6 different legal theories and bases. I've heard more expansive responses that would like to overhaul and fix previous case law and statutory problems with how justice systems are supported in our tribal nations. I've seen more narrow fixes. And so my question for our panelists today is really a process question more than a substance question, which is there a need to seek a immediate fix that's reaffirms McGirt or addresses a fatal flaw before the end of this Congress, while we engage in a much more robust consultation process with the executive branch so that we can hear from all of our tribal nations? And sort of your thoughts about how we build a reasonable consensus on a legislative path forward. And I think, if it's okay, Madam Chair, just going in the order of the witnesses' testimony, starting with our Honorable Ambassador from Muskogee Creek.
Does that work for you, Madam Chair? If that does. Thank you so much, Congresswoman Stansbury. Always good to see you. So in the interest of time, I will say that there is no legislative language that we've put forward as a nation. However, there are proposals that we support that are intended to generate meaningful discussion, to have Congress signal its intent to uphold its responsibilities in short order. We are mindful of the potential for mischief and erroneous misapplication of the underlying rationale of Castro-Huerta in cases that go beyond public safety. Most importantly, and coming around the horizon, the Supreme Court's set to hear arguments in the Brackeen case, which, if the Supreme Court wrongly extends the rationale under Castro-Huerta, could be devastating for Native children throughout the country. So we want Congress to act quickly. In terms of legislative proposals that we would suggest or support, we not only support clarification in the public safety context, but to be clear, we also support a robust effort collectively to go after bad guys. And going after bad guys requires addressing sentencing limitations, jurisdictional limitations, and so forth. So we do believe action is needed now, and we support something that addresses things collectively. We don't call it a fix. We call it strengthening public safety issues in Indian country. Thank you so much for the question.
Thank you so much. And mindful that I actually have run out of time here with this. I'm going to submit this, Madam Chairwoman, as a question for the record to all of our witnesses. And as I stated, I would love to hear from tribal nations. We would love to hear from tribal nations across the country about how to build that consensus process. And the question about acting expediently before the end of this Congress and whether it's a both and, doing something now as well as doing something more extensive. Finally, I just want to say that we are working very hard to get a real budget passed. We know there's going to be a short-term CR. We are hearing the need to get more resources to support tribal courts, to beef up DOJ and BIA law enforcement. And we know that this is a huge immediate need across Indian country. We stand with you, and we will be working very closely with tribal nations to address this issue. Thank you, Madam Chairwoman.
Thank you.